I've known Terri and John Hale for years. The longer I've known them, the more I admire them and the work that they do as advocates for older adults, more recently, older adults living in long-term care in Iowa. Among other important things that they do, they write guest editorials that appear in newspapers, including the Cedar Rapids Gazette. And when I open the paper, usually on a Sunday, and I see a guest editorial about older adults, I immediately suspect it is a Hale guest editorial, and I'm always right. The editorials are fact-filled, nonpartisan, and encourage readers to influence legislators to do the right thing. Almost always, I send off an email to them saying, "Keep up your good work," which they have. They're kind of like the Energizer bunnies. So here to speak to us today about long-term care in Iowa are Terri and John Hale. Thanks for being here.
A quick message to Kristen. I'm John Hale. My wife is Terri Hale. Our two kids are Inhale and Exhale. So, just so you know. I want to thank Kathy for those generous comments. We've been blessed with support from Zach Kukarski and Todd Dorman at the Cedar Rapids Gazette and numerous other outlets in Iowa, and we greatly appreciate the time and the space they provide for us. I want to thank the Innovation Center for the invitation to speak today, and I want to thank all of you for being here and for caring about the topic. I should say that this is Terri and my first exposure to and experience with the Innovation Center. And the one word that comes to my mind after being here for a brief period of time this morning is, this is a remarkable place. Absolutely remarkable. And kudos to everyone who's been involved in the planning and the implementation and the operation of all the good things that are going on here. Thank you very much. We're going to be candid with you today. We weren't asked here to soft coat a lot of serious topics. So we're going to try to be constructively critical of Iowa's long-term care system and America's long-term care system. The qualifier is this. Our comments are going to be big picture and will not, I repeat, will not pertain to the exceptional facilities that you have here and the good work that's being done here. The Cedar Rapids area, quite frankly, is blessed to have them. We do work across Iowa and across the United States, and this is a very, very special place. And our main message, sadly, is the long-term care system in Iowa and America has failed to meet the needs of those who depend on it. It's broken, and it must be fixed. It's failing two groups of people. It's failing the consumers of long-term care, those who've lost the ability to live independently and need help. It's failing them. And it's failing the informal network of friends and family who serve as caregivers. We'll discuss this in reverse order. Terri's going to talk about our experiences as caregivers, and I'm going to talk about the system of services and supports and what needs to change there and how you might be able to help us change it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to introduce the lovely, the talented, the incomparable Terri Hale.
I just want you to know that's how he greets me every single morning. Am I the luckiest woman in the world or what? What I'm going to be talking about is our experiences as members of what is the largest unpaid workforce in the country and in the state of Iowa, and it's a workforce that's not considered a workforce. Those informal family caregivers. Tim mentioned 75 million, I think, across the country, the nation, and 73,000 was mentioned by the panel. The AARP puts the number at 300,000. This is a workforce, as I mentioned, that's unpaid. It's also indispensable and often thrust into this complex world of caregiving for a loved one, often a parent, a relative, sometimes a friend, with little or no training. And these unpaid caregivers, after working 40 plus hours a week at their paid job, about a quarter of them will spend 40 plus hours at home caring for their loved one. The average is about 18 hours or more. Like many unpaid caregivers, John and I found ourselves in that role, and we actually were in the role long before we realized it. And just as a little background, and this is what propelled us to do the writing and the advocacy that we do. About 20 years ago, John took a position with the Iowa Caregivers Association, which supports the paid direct care workforce in Iowa. And he began to learn firsthand, and I along with him, the significant challenges facing that workforce in attraction, retention, paying benefits, the impact that has on institutionalized care of our loved ones. And while he was learning about that, we found ourselves becoming caregivers for our own families. John's mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Eventually, both of my parents were diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and John's sister diagnosed with Parkinson's. And so we found ourselves caring for this group of loved ones, like others with very little training, knowing what we're doing, and a group of loved ones that had absolutely no plan for this time of life when they were going to need help. And when we tried to talk about it with our fathers, and these were independent conversations, but our fathers had the same comment. When we were trying to talk a little bit about if you need more care, my dad said to me, if I need a nursing home, take me out behind the barn and shoot me. John's dad said the same exact thing. So it was really hard to have an ongoing conversation with them about this. We ended up being caregivers to these loved ones for about 15 years total. We were lucky. We had siblings that we were able to cooperate with to share in that. We were able to find the time. We had the resources, the health. We learned firsthand how demanding emotionally, mentally, physically, as well as rewarding being a family caregiver can be. While we were caregiving, we were also juggling with the full-time jobs, as I mentioned earlier, and we were part of what we call the club sandwich generation because we were caring for older adults in our family. We had young adults, sons and daughters who were launching their lives. We had a teenager at home, and we had grandkids. For me, the worst part of the experience were the emotional aspects that were referenced earlier, the grief of watching our loved ones lose their independence, of them having to submit to care when they did not want to be a burden. The guilt, questioning myself every day, as John Hale can attest, am I doing enough? Am I doing it the right way? How do I provide care to someone who doesn't want it and respect their dignity? Sometimes I did well at that, sometimes I didn't. We learned the challenges of trying to navigate the confusing, complex long-term care system in Iowa, including Medicaid, and the challenges of trying to find a decent place when our families needed more than the care that we could provide. And then we learned about how to help manage that care from the outside. Just out of curiosity, how many of you in this room have been or currently are family caregivers? Just about everybody. How many of you anticipate you will be? About 1 in 5 Americans are family caregivers, and about 50% of them believe they will be. How many of you worry about, if not dread, someday needing a caregiver? Yeah, we're all in the same boat here. Well, these experiences as family caregivers, coupled with what John was learning firsthand about the challenges facing the paid direct care workforce and many of the horrors that exist in the long-term care industry in the state, that's what has propelled our advocacy. And over the years, we have heard from and spoken to dozens and dozens of caregivers. Every time there is an op-ed in the paper, we get emails with incredible stories. We get phone calls. I get stopped in the grocery store. Everybody, it seems, has a caregiving story. Two of the most difficult questions to answer and the most common. Number one is, how do I find a safe place for my parent that also provides quality care? The second one is, my parent is in a nursing home and they're not receiving adequate care. What can I do about this without retribution falling on them? The bottom line from our experience is that most unpaid caregivers, for most of them, the system is failing to provide the support that they need, with the exception of this place right here. My word for entering this place and learning about it is jaw-dropping. And everything that we just heard from this panel, those are all the things that family caregivers need. And if only we could pick this up and replicate it in all of the major towns in Iowa, what a gift that would be to the growing number of family caregivers. Everything that you do here is exactly what family caregivers need, and I know that you know that. So to reiterate what John said earlier, this place is a model for what is needed for family caregivers, and the innovative thinking that went into creating this place is exactly what's needed to help solve the challenges in the broader long-term care system. And that is what John is going to elaborate on right now.
I brought some props. To reiterate, let me see if I can get this to work. To reiterate, the long-term care system in Iowa and America has failed to meet the needs of those who depend on it. It's broken and it must be fixed. I use the word must intentionally. Could use should, could use could, but I'm using must. And the reason for that is because the word must, my props here, this is a sampling of the reports that have been done for Congress or that have been done for the Iowa legislature that talk about, identify, and propose solutions to the various challenges that the long-term care system has. The oldest one is from 1990, 34 years ago. This was a fabulous report. It described the problems in the long-term care system. It looked into the future, told Americans about what was going to happen, cried out for change, and here were the final words of this report from 34 years ago. 4 words: we must act now. We must act now. 34 years ago. This pile of reports that I brought with me all essentially say the same thing, and they all essentially end at the same place. They say it in different words rather than saying, we must act now. There's 4 or 5 other words that basically say, let's do something here. We've done this great report. We've identified all the problems. We've proposed solutions. Now let's just act. Sadly, we have not reached that point. And what these reports identify, it all comes down to essentially 3 things where we as a state and we as a nation have failed to simply give people what they want. Public policy has not provided people with what they simply want. And those 3 things are, and I bet if you thought about it, you could come up with them. But the things that people want as they reach that point where they need some help, they're no longer able to live independently on a day-to-day basis. The first thing they want is they want choice on where they receive services. They want choice, and they want to be in control. They want to be in control of their decision-making. Sadly, they're not getting it. They want to be served in their own homes, in their own communities, for as long as they possibly can. That's where the comfort is. That's where the memories are. That's where family and friends are. But we are not providing that to them. Instead, the long-term care system and the public policy system and the money gives them what they don't want. That is to be served in an institutional setting that costs the most. Now think about that. Our public policy is giving people what they don't want, and it costs the most. Now that, folks, is just crazy. Number two, and I hope that you would just automatically agree with me on this. They want and expect, and I would say absolutely deserve, consistent, high-quality care provided by caring, well-trained staff who serve and treat them in a humane and a dignified manner. Is that happening across the state of Iowa? No, it's not. It is absolutely not. If any of you read the Cedar Rapids Gazette on a regular basis or pay attention to other media and you have come across anything that Clark Kaufman is doing at the Iowa Capital Dispatch, reporting on way too regular of a basis the totally unsatisfactory care being provided to friends, family, and loved ones, or people we don't even know, but who still deserve good, high-quality care. There's so much reporting on this. It happens so frequently that we've all just become kind of numb to it. It's like so many things in the news. When you see it so often, you just become numb to it. That's a tragedy, quite frankly. And the third thing that people want is they want affordable care with more options on how to pay for it. And any of you who've had loved ones in any kind of a setting, whether it's home care, whether it's assisted living, whether it's a nursing home, know how expensive this is. It can run anywhere from $75,000 a year to upwards of $150,000 a year. Now consider an individual with Alzheimer's, some form of dementia, advanced Parkinson's. People can live with that condition for a long time. It can be a decade or more. So consider the fact that a family is spending maybe $125,000, $150,000 a year. Take that times 10 years, you've gone through $1 million really fast. And our payment system for this is what I call the yo-yo system, the YO. You're on your own. Good luck. Hope it turns out okay. Something fundamentally wrong here with this picture, where to pay for these high costs, we expect people to pay for these expenses out of their pocket. We expect them to drain all of their assets that they've worked a lifetime to accumulate. Once they've drained their assets, they, in their mind, have to go on the welfare program to pay for their remaining services for the remainder of their life, the Medicaid program. Something's just fundamentally wrong with that approach. Consider the healthcare side of the world. We're so concerned as a society about people's health and the ability to pay for those services that we've created this large, sophisticated, complicated health insurance system to help pay for those bills. That's on the health insurance side. And then on the long-term care side, we have a long-term care insurance system. You can buy policies, maybe 6 or 7 or 8% of Americans have them. But what we've learned through our own experience holding a long-term care insurance policy is we bought it about 12 years ago at a reasonable price. And for the past 3 or 4 years, the company that we bought from has come to us saying, guess what? Your rates are going to increase and increase significantly. And we have talked about every year, should we just cancel this policy? Are we getting our money's worth from it? Again, a payment system that's fundamentally broken. can be fixed, should be fixed, but is not being fixed. So here we are, 34 years of conversation, 34 years of reports, 34 years of what I call the paralysis of analysis, not giving Iowans and Americans what they want and what they deserve. That, as the report said in 1990, must change. It will change, ladies and gentlemen, when the public, all of you and everyone out there, says to their elected officials, we expect you to change this. We expect you to change this. It's politics 101. It's not complicated. It's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And we have been told this. I mean, we're just not pulling this out of the air. We've been told this by our Republican friends, by our Democratic friends, by our independent friends in office, both in Des Moines and DC. We've had opportunities to talk with lots of them. And we're going through our little spiel to them about all the problems and all these reports and the fact that there hasn't been any action taken and why is this? And they often will interrupt us in a very nice way. They will often interrupt us in a very nice way and say, John, Terri, we hear you. We agree with you. We realize that there's action to be taken. We realize that we're not doing our jobs. We realize we ought to be doing things to make people's lives better. And then we, of course, ask the question, well, why aren't you? And their answer to a person, again, Republicans, Democrats, DC and Des Moines, say, we're not hearing from any of our constituents about this. We're just not hearing from any of our constituents about this. Slide. Whoop. So folks, if you want change, we got to speak up and we got to speak out a whole lot more than what we've been doing. Politicians and elected leaders will respond if they hear from enough people that are asking them, are challenging them, are expecting them to do something, to take action. So we are part of the problem, we're part of the solution. Bottom line here is that, and I think you will agree, Iowans and Americans deserve a better long-term care system. One that honors their lives, gives them choice, gives them control, allows them to spend their final months, their final years, where they want, how they want, and doesn't bankrupt them in the process. We don't think that's too much to ask, folks. We just don't think that's too much to ask. To close, I would ask you to reflect just for 20 seconds, to reflect for 20 seconds on what we've talked about here and identify the word, a word that comes to mind to describe kind of the situation we're in. Is there, I'm not going to ask for answers. We're not going to do a put you on the spot kind of thing. But I'd ask you just to think of a word that's the descriptor for what we've talked about. Your answer might be a negative one. It might be something like, well, this is kind of gloomy. This is kind of approaching a disaster. This is rather sad. But the word I would ask you to think about, and the word I'd leave you with, is this: opportunity. Opportunity. There is opportunity here to influence public policy, opportunity to influence the decisions that are made that impact people, and there's opportunity to improve the lives of people that are in or will be in someday the long-term care system. So I encourage you to think of this in an opportunistic way, to get engaged, to get involved, talk to your legislators, and that's the only way we have hope of getting the system to move in the right direction. So with that, we are running a little bit ahead of schedule, I believe, and we could entertain any questions or comments if there are any to be entertained. Yes.
So how many contacts would it take to change the Iowa legislature? Is it 1 million, 5 million, 20 million, 50 million? How many people? I mean, if they say that the reason they're not doing anything is because they're not hearing from constituents. So is it voters? Is it just, what do we need to do to be able to get their attention? Because there's always that rock that continues to keep getting kicked down, kicked down the road. And that is, well, I only heard from 1 million. I only got 5 million. I only got 20 million. I only got whatever. It's not enough, right? We have other things that are more important. What do you need to do to get those guys to be able to change?
I wish I had a magic, accurate answer for that. I think the reality is in the political world, even lots of voices doesn't change public policy. I think of the voices that came out en masse after the last legislative session that talked about the dismay that thousands of Iowans had about the education system, the regional Arrowhead Education Agency, or the AEAs, whatever they're called in your particular part of the country. Thousands of people contacted their legislator. We talked to our local legislator in Ankeny about this, and she said she had received over 1,000 emails, calls, letters, but that didn't change the decision. I think the only thing I can say is we know things aren't going to change unless we do something. We've got to start doing something. Some of this is a volume thing. You got to hear from more people. Some of it is also a relational thing. Who knows who? I can say something to a legislator or to the governor's office, and I know that my voice is not going to accomplish what I'd like it to accomplish. So my challenge is, who do I know that might know somebody who might know somebody who could talk to that somebody and actually have some impact? So part of it is marshaling resources, part of it is expanding the voice, part of it is also identifying key voices who have influence that maybe most of us don't have. Thanks for the question. One more? There's been a lot in the news recently about this arena. Some of you may have read about the 26 nursing homes that were sold to a out-of-state private equity firm in Chicago for $85 million. And that's what we wrote about recently. And our concern was that this was done in the dark. The 26 facilities that were sold to the private equity firm currently holds licenses to dozens and dozens and dozens of facilities. Their overall performance record is very poor. They score lower on the score sheets than the ownership that just sold them. So our concern was secret. My God, do we really want to sell 29 facilities to somebody who's not performing well already? So there's that issue. There's Biden administration on a proposal to establish minimum staffing levels in nursing homes, require that at least a bare bones minimum of staff will be available. That's probably going to go by the wayside with the recent election. So lots and lots of issues. I hope that you'll pay attention to what's going on. The next administration, I'm not here to talk politics. We're all here to see what happens. And maybe they'll do some good things, I hope. If they don't, then we all have to recognize that and start talking a little bit. Anything else before we wrap this up? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.